Namaste and good evening, everyone. I, Ritika Gupta, Assistant Director at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav Evam Niti Anusandhan Sansthan, Nai Delhi, extend my heartiest welcome to you all to IMPRI #Policy Talk. Today, we are here for a special talk and book discussion on praising a humanist, conscious parenting in an increasingly fragmented world. This talk is part of the series, The State of Gender Equality, #Gender Gaps, organized by Gender Back Study Center at IMPRI. The book is being published by Sage Publishing. We are delighted to host the authors of the book today, Professor Manisha Pathak-Shelat and Ms. Kiran Bhatia. I am honored to introduce to you Professor Pathak. Ma'am is the Professor of Communication and Digital Platforms and Strategies and Chair at the Center for Development, Management and Communications at Mudra Institute of Communications, Ahmedabad, MICA. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. We also have with us Ms. Kiran Bhatia as our second speaker. Ms. Bhatia is a doctoral candidate and teaching assistant at the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, University of Wisconsin-Madison, United States. Welcome, ma'am. We are also delighted to have Professor Vibhuti Patel as chair. Ma'am is an eminent economist and feminist. She is also a former professor at TATA Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Thank you, ma'am, for chairing the session. We are delighted to join by three discussants. We have with us Dr. Gita Balakrishnan, madam. She is the former principal, College of Social Work, Nirmala, Niketan, Mumbai. We have with us Dr. Sunayana Kadle, madam, who is associate professor at Srimati Surjava College of Education in Juvat, Mumbai. We have with us Dr. Meenu Anand, madam, who is assistant professor at Department of Social Work, University of Delhi. Welcome to all of you. With these introduction, I welcome you all to the deliberation and request Vibhuti ma'am to give her opening remarks and then invite our eminent speaker, Professor Shelat and Ms. Bhatia, for their book discussion. Thank you. Ma'am, over to you.
Yeah. So good evening, friends. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Arjun Kumar and IMPRI for giving me this opportunity to chair a session with such an important topic as a raising the humanist conscious parenting in increasingly fragmented world. I also greet my co-panelists and the authors. I congratulate the authors, Dr. Manisha and Dr. Kiran, Manisha Pathak and Dr. Kiran Vinod Bhatia for coming up with such an important book, which is actually a timely publication and need of an hour. The discussant for today's book, they are also veterans and for a very long record of being in the field of education and social work. Dr. Gita Balakrishnan, she has been like her Facebook lessons in social work are so useful for the students who are in a remote parts of our country. Then you have a Sunayana Kadle, their education, Indian Council of Basic Education, which is their trust. Surajba College of Education also runs early childhood education center, and they have also taken keen interest in this whole value education on the Gandhian principles of Bunyadi Talim, foundational education. And also Dr. Meenu Anand, who has also come up with a valuable book on gender and mental health. She's in the social work field. She has also worked in the community-based organizations and NGOs. So being with this galaxy of very, very committed educationists and community-oriented personalities, it's a great privilege and I feel honored to be part of this whole discussion. We all know that it was the UNESCO which came up in 2007 with a very important statement about the early childhood education. And I quote, young children are very sensitive in their physical and psychological environments. Boys and girls should find ECCE, early care and childhood education, safe. They will not be beaten or hurt physically or emotionally, child-friendly. They play and they are active in many ways that they enjoy. Supportive adults who support, protect, and involve them in approaches and activities that help them develop their minds, their bodies, their social skills, their behavior, nurturing each child's self-esteem. Children learn and gain communication skills and participate in various ways, in variety of ways, and they feel good about who they are, if they are gender sensitive, their girls and boys receive equal attention and respect. In this and other ways, they learn to value themselves and others equally, well managed. The local community cares and support programs, they are extremely important for strong foundations of gender equality in the early childhood education. Now, but what we see in the contemporary reality, that this kind of environment is not existing. It doesn't allow to happen any kind of a humane way of human interactions or approach to the humankind. Segregated existence, identity politics, cultural nationalism, social Darwinism, racism, colorism, casteism, communalism, ethnic chauvinism, misogyny, and consumerism cast great impression on the psyche and the worldview of children. Culture of gated communities also prevent free intermixing of children of different socio-economic and cultural backgrounds. This division divides human beings, as Dr. Baba Sahib stated. Caste doesn't divide who will do what, that means division of labor, but it also divides human beings because of the layered and the segregated hierarchical relations which it determines in terms of code of conduct. There is always a fear of the unknown in today's atomized world. This has exponentially increased over last 15 months of lockdown and social isolation. At a macro and meso level, we need to create better world through appropriate policies. But at a micro level, in our schools, communities, and families, we can inculcate concern for human welfare, human values, dignity of human person, and basic human rights of each and every person, irrespective of caste, class, race, religion, and ethnicity and gender. So it is in this context that today's webinar becomes very important, and especially the book discussion on this latest publication by Dr. Manisha Pathak and Kiran Vinod Bhatia. And now I request Dr. Manisha Pathak to make a brief presentation of her book.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vibhuti.
Yeah.
We have structured the talk in a way that Kiran will begin.
Okay.
And she will talk more about the content of the book, and then I will take over and talk more about the approach we have to the book. So Kiran, would you like to start?
Thank you so much, Professor Manisha. So I would basically like to begin by providing an insight into our lives as academicians, researchers, and most importantly, as media educators. Both of us have worked with children and parents in different regions and places. We have worked in rural villages, we have worked in towns, small and big cities. What we present in our work is the knowledge, expertise, and kind of advice that so many children and parents and teachers have shared with us generously over years. Based on our work in rural villages of Gujarat, we wrote an academic book in 2019 describing important media education principles and practices and some very important strategies for promoting interfaith dialogue and collaboration between Hindu and Muslim children. This book had some very wonderful resources and compelled us to think of ways in which we could make this knowledge accessible to more people and to a broader audience. We truly believe in democratizing education and knowledge. So we therefore decided to write this book, especially for parents and educators who want to have these timely conversations on how to, develop a deep understanding of the communities, how to raise their kids to be more confident, compassionate, and civic. I would like to emphasize that our books are always based in a very thorough understanding of the communities we work with. We often choose to immerse ourselves in the lives of the children and the parents we engage with. We observe their lifestyles, their beliefs, their attitudes and practices, and various other conditions. We talk to them, we conduct interviews with them, request their feedback and guidance. In a sense, we conduct ethnographies. We encourage them to think with us to help us develop and identify the best teaching and learning practices that will allow us to raise our children to be humanists. Our one true aim is to humanize people towards one another, make them believe that a better, more peaceful and interconnected world is possible, and to nudge them to make such a world a reality. This book is an effort to start a discussion on how we can transcend our echo chambers. Now, opening our hearts and minds to differences can be an overwhelming experience, but it is an important work. a project that we must all undertake to make sure our children are kind to themselves, to their bodies and minds, to teach them to respect others, and to gift them with skills required to critically evaluate and question their beliefs and ideologies. Think about this for a minute. How many people here, at least once in their lives, use fairness creams and encourage their children, especially their daughters, to do that as well? Have we not grown up watching TV commercials on fairness cream and aspired somewhere deep within to have a body that is portrayed as ideal, perfect in our societies? Even in the media that we consume, movies, songs, and nowadays Instagram, I'm so sorry, that's my cat. The most common thing children see are photoshopped and filtered images and videos. They develop unrealistic expectations from themselves and their bodies. How many of us have family members, a neighbor, a friend who enjoys providing unsolicited advice to young people, especially girls, on how to reduce weight? JJ. How to reduce weight, have fair and clear skin, and so on. And how often do we feel confident confronting our family members? Not often, I am sure. In this book, therefore, we begin with an acknowledgement that introducing such changes is never an easy task. It's a two-way process. We first begin with identifying our own limitations, recognizing our biases and prejudices, and then we must spend time and effort to introduce changes in our families, schools, and communities. In this book, we suggest 3 expansive strategies that will help teachers and parents identify techniques, lesson plans, and tools for transcending their echo chambers. The first strategy involves ideas on how to redesign our own social environments, our surroundings, schools, families, neighborhoods, communities, people in our networks, those our children talk to and learn from. Children observe and learn from everything that happens around them. This is called the process of socialization. They are socialized to behave in a certain way. We teach our daughters to behave in feminine ways and our boys to man up. We teach our young children about their religion, caste, class, and so much more. This learning does not always happen in a direct way. Children observe what happens in their homes and learn from that. Think about this. Women who are assertive are called bossy or dominating, while men who are assertive are called leaders. Women who are sensitive are called compassionate or kind, while sensitive men are called weak and pathetic. When children watch, hear, and observe such conversations and practices in their movies, TV shows, their families, and neighborhoods, they develop ideas on how they should behave as men and women. And these ideas can be limiting, constraining, and discriminatory. Children use these observations to make sense of the world around them. What they watch, practice, and hear determines their understanding of the world and how they should behave in it. If we want to raise our children as humanist, we must first be willing to change the way they are socialized, the language we use, the examples we provide, and the way we treat other people. For instance, what happens when children observe that their family members serve their house helps in separate utensils? They learn how to discriminate against people from a lower class and caste in their own homes. And when they ask us questions about why we discriminate, we give them excuses such as, these people are dirty, they are unhygienic, they may have diseases, and so on. We seldom try to identify the biases in our own behavior. Instead, we snub our children if they ask us difficult questions. In the book, we emphasize that the why questions matter, not only because we must be honest and open with our children if we expect the same kind of behavior from them, but also because children can compel us to re-examine the problems in our own thinking, our biases and prejudices. The second strategy involves thinking outside the box and making the best use of the available resources. As parents and teachers, we have so many tools, techniques, informations, and gadgets at our disposal. Children have access to unlimited information and entertainment resources. And such an exposure can be used to educate our children to be citizens of the world. There is so much good on the internet, communities, spaces, creative outlets, mentoring opportunities. Exposing ourselves and children to these possibilities is crucial. For instance, many children are familiar with some aspects of the Japanese culture because they regularly consume anime. And then we have the K-pop family. How can we help our children understand their own culture, but be ready to expand their minds and open their hearts to new experiences? Educators and parents can teach their children to harness the potential of technology and develop a multicultural perspective to find global opportunities that will help them enhance their knowledge base, their skill set, and networks. Our kids inhabit online childhoods. You must get on board or you will just be left behind. Based on our experiences, we provide ideas and suggestions on how parents and teachers can become tech savvy. What media literacy and critical thinking skills are important to help our children navigate a technological world? Which online networks and platforms, resources, and applications will help our children stay safe as they connect with other children from across the globe? For instance, many international organizations such as UNICEF, UNESCO, World Bank, they offer writing internships or blogging opportunities. Children can share their ideas on civic global issues such as climate change, pollution, poverty on these platforms and receive feedback. We have tried to design some interesting and easy critical literacy exercises that we hope will help our children build and participate in global and civic communities while steering clear of problems such as cyberbullying, cyber extremism, identity fraud, and grooming. This book will give you ideas on how to initiate internet discipline, maintain transparency, and equip children with digital literacy competencies. A world connected with the internet requires globe-trotting citizens, those who can adopt and adapt, love and resist, strive and hope. Let your children know the endless potential of the world and what it holds out for them, and prepare them to embrace it. The third strategy involves play-based teaching and learning. We provide some practical fun activities for children, parents, and teachers to participate in together. For instance, we discuss the importance of socially engaged arts. The focus of socially engaged arts practice is threefold. First, to identify some of the very common but largely ignored problems of our local communities and regions. Second, to equip children with the opportunities and resources required to use their imagination and identify novel solutions for the problems. And third, to create a learning environment based on principles of change-oriented approach, innovation, and participation. Socially engaged arts practices such as art for activism, drawing graffitis, organizing street plays, flash mobs, arts and crafts workshop, writing and performing stories such as slam poetry. All these activities can be used to design learning opportunities for children. In the book, we provide interesting lesson plans which can be tried at homes, in schools, and in our neighborhoods. We suggest ways in which parents can turn their homes into digital arts lab, take children and their group of young artists onto the streets for performance, use photo walks and other techniques to design multimedia art projects for activism and civic engagement, and work in diverse teams with children from different backgrounds. All of this is possible if we start from a place of tolerance. Tolerance is not merely a personal characteristic. We argue and explain that tolerance must be cultivated as a civic virtue and included in our everyday lives. All of us live in plural societies. With globalization, as people move to new places, they bring their culture and knowledge, their values and beliefs. To thrive in such pluralistic societies, it is crucial for us to accept that differences can be in conversation with each other without being at war. We enlist practices of tolerance promoted in different cultures, regions, and religions to emphasize that coexistence and mutual respect is important to ensure that our societies do not fall into a state of chaos or peril. From Buddhist philosophies of bodhicitta and the meditative practices of Tonglen to communication theories such as Sahridaya and Sadharanikaran, we offer insights into the many ways in which people can practice tolerance in their civic, political, and interpersonal lives. We begin with the belief that, contrary to the common perception that humans are weak, selfish, and divided, human nature is defined largely by virtues such as generosity and altruism that we practice daily. A difficult challenge emerges when this generosity and acceptance is limited to only people in our in-group, those who are from the same religion, caste, and class. We urge parents and teachers to use these philosophical debates in our books as an inspiration on how to extend their faith and compassion beyond their in-groups and engage those in the out-groups with the same level of generosity. We understand that raising children who are open and critical, strong and compassionate, who believe in freedom and respect other people's rights is never going to be an easy task. Introducing changes and initiating progressive movements surely begins at home, but their successful implementation relies on how these changes are included in our social institutions of power, including family, legal structures, educational institutions, and other systems. In what follows, Professor Manisha will discuss the role of academics and community outreach, and this book's contribution towards rethinking media policy, cybersecurity, and gender dynamics informing young people's digital engagements. Over to you, Professor Pathak.
Thank you so much, Kiran. Thank you for building that background for me to proceed. So as you would have seen from what Kiran said, transcending our echo chambers is one of the central ideas of this book. Communication scholars use various jargons to describe this mental cocoons, where we want to find comfort, call it echo chambers or silos or thought ghettos or communication dissonance. But basically the idea is that most of us like to listen, read, and encounter beliefs and ideas that align with our own. And we want to shun people and ideas that challenge our beliefs. So we don't want to go out of our comfort zones and in a way break these echo chambers. I would urge everyone to check, please check your WhatsApp groups, check your offline and online networks, check the jokes that you receive, the news that you read. And I want to ask this question, that how many people in your networks are not like you? Are there people in your online and offline networks that would let you look at the world, the situation in a totally different perspective? Are there people in your network, who would challenge you? If the answer is no, then I think we are all living in our gilded cages. And I like to ask this question to people who self-identify as liberals also, because liberals can also very easily live in their silos and, not break out of them. So what I'm going to do today is talk about how we are addressing this in the book. And so when Kiran and I started, and Kiran talked about the academic book that we've written and several other papers on this topic and on our research. So very first thing we realized that, to write such a book, we have to transcend our academic echo chamber, because we are so used to speaking in that language to people like us. So the very first thing we realized that as upper caste, highly educated women, first of all, we have to inspect our baggage. And then we have to break out of our academic silos and echo chambers to make sure that we speak a different language and our scholarship is socially engaged. So that was a very important part of this work. So if you have gone through the book, you would realize that, the scope is immense. And we are really addressing difficult concepts such as class, caste, gender, diversity, discrimination, privilege, tolerance. And these are very profound and helpful ideas, but not easy ideas. As you would see, we also draw from several scholars like Michel Foucault, Stuart Hall, Kamala Bhasin, and philosophers such as Wangari Maathai, Gautam Buddha, Dalai Lama. So a range of scholars from across the world. And our basic concern was that how should we take these very, very helpful and profound ideas and make them more accessible without diluting them. So that was the biggest challenge in front of us. And to do that, that's why we had to develop an approach that I would call a critical yet pragmatic approach. So I'm going to now just talk to you about, what were some of the rhetorical strategies that we developed so that our scholarship became socially engaged. So the very first point I would say is that we made sure that our scholarship and the book spatially is audience-centric. And here the primary audience is parents. So we make very sure that all along the book, we respect the parents. See, parenting is a very difficult task, and we have to recognize that. So we have to make sure that we understand that every parenting journey is different. Every parenting journey is full of different challenges. And if we don't respect those challenges and the difficult tasks that parents have in front of them, we would be just preaching from a pedestal and not actually realizing, their insecurities, their fears, their vulnerabilities. So respecting our audience was our very first strategy. Second, we recognize that our reality is not black and white. Our realities have shades of gray and shades of different colors, and human beings are not black and white. We are very complex beings. Our safety, self-interest, power, these are all very real things. So nowhere we wanted to be preachy in this book, and be utopian and give ideas and strategies that we know are not practical, or which would, actually lead to parents saying that, no, if I do this, my child is not going to be safe. My child is actually going to get into problems. And we recognize that, when we practice critical thinking, where we practice activism, it's not always safe. And it's not always a pleasant thing to do. We do encounter difficulties and challenges. So that was very important for us, that we recognize the gray nature of reality and don't talk about things that are unrealistic. The third strategy that we used was the way we present, So what Kiran talked about is the content of the book. What I want to say that, okay, we had this really helpful, profound content. How do we package this content for readers? So throughout the book, we have used humor, because humor is one of a very good rhetorical tool for conveying difficult ideas. We use gentle provocations. So for example, we have introduced difficult concepts like how if we don't see gender as a binary, but as a continuum. Or how if we take, an ancient story like Eklavya and not look at it and do what Stuart Hall recommends is as oppositional reading, and not say that, oh, what a great guru Drona was, but like how the whole practice was not fair to Eklavya. So we also gently encourage people to look at our ancient text, and in all religions, not just one religion, and let them see that, they were written in a very different times, in a very different context. And questioning them is perfectly fine, and you have to love your culture. But if you question your culture from place of love, keeping your core values intact, that is worth encouraging. So we also use, a very interesting layout with lots of illustrations. So that also provokes people to think. We have, pauses where we say, okay, pause and think. And then we give interactive exercise to people to connect with, and think through what we have so far talked about. So it's not like, okay, here is what we want to say. You read through the book and here is our advice. So we don't call it a how-to book or a parenting advice book. So for example, we had this one illustration, and you'll see this always on a Women's Day, and there is a panel. And everybody would say that, women have to do this double role and they are so good at multitasking. They have to look after the home and look after the job. And that is assumed, that is taken for granted. So we gently nudge people to question it. That really, can't men multitask? So a lot of things we have picked up from our social observations, and we encourage people to question it. And finally, as Kiran said, we give many doable suggestions, practices, but making sure that we bring social change through tact, through respect, and through a lot of self-care. You know? So no way we want to tell parents that, you take it like you always in a fighting mode, ruining all family dinners, and always there is a generational conflict. So we also show that how tactfully you can take elders in the family, along with you in the process of social change. So our entire approach to bringing this change in your family, in your community, is respectful, tactful, and never without self-love and self-care, because I think it's very important for parents and children both. So I would say that this book is not directly addressed to policymakers as such, but we feel that the book touches upon a lot of policy domains, that we should think about. So first, I would say is that parenting itself. So when we look at, policy about media for young people, and we barely have anything like that, except, some like banning that and stopping that, but we don't have a constructive policy. And the problem is that more and more in neoliberal societies and capitalism, we have started saying that, look, your children's safety, whether they are safe online or whether they will encounter, violence or sexual content which is not appropriate for them, that's your problem. Saving your children from all that, protecting them is your problem as a parent. I mean, people who want to make profit will make profit. In fact, I came across, groups in the US who actually said that, why should I sacrifice my enjoyment of, adult content during prime time because some other people want to have children and want to protect them? Why should I not make profit because other people, want to keep their children safe? That's their problem. So this is one very important policy discussion we have to undertake, is that how do we see parenting and children? And how do we see children? Do we see children as national and global wealth, human beings in their own rights, who deserve respect, or we see parenting as somebody's personal problem and children as their personal property? So that is one policy discussion we would have here. And a similar thing happens when it comes to gender. So any policy which has a strong gender dimension, and most policy would, we again treat gender in a very patriarchal way in our policies. So for example, areas, about whether women should have children or how many children they should have and when, what profession women should take up, how women should treat their bodies, and even as something as simple as what they choose to wear. I think that these are all private issues, but they have taken public dimension. So as if everybody has a say in them. And the real issues which need public intervention, say safety in the public places, I would say, or work-life balance, or affordable childcare when women want to join the workforce. These are actually public issues that we treat as if, these are a woman's personal problem. And if she wants to work or she wants to have child or she wants to be safe, it's her problem, she should take care of herself. So I think this dimension we really need to discuss about. We have also observed in our work that women and transgender are at the most receiving end of abuse online. These two groups face maximum trolling, maximum abuse, violence. So I think some policy we need there. And after years of trying, we still don't have a comprehensive media literacy policy as part of our national education policy. So I think these are some of the policy domains we should think about. And as you know, before we started this session, we were just chatting and we realized that how many academics there are in this session. So I would also add that, in academic hiring, promotion, we always just value when we speak to other academics in the form of peer-reviewed papers and research. I think it is about time, and it is very important. I'm not saying that peer review and peer-reviewed journal papers and research are not important. It's a very important part of being an academic. But how about also giving due importance to transcending these echo chambers and recognizing efforts, when academics want to reach large audiences and engage in public scholarship. So I think that is also one area that we should think about. So I will stop here, and I'll just thank all of you for being here despite, I know that we're all suffering from Zoom fatigue, and, all the panelists for taking the time out and for inviting us. And I think I would,
thank you.
now request Vibhuti take over.
So thank you, Dr. Kiran and Manisha, for giving the highlights of all your all the book, and also ending with a very important. You have nailed this at the right way, that how commercialization of publication and media education policy is is nothing but an attempt to homogenize. So we are also losing our humility to accept plural sources of knowledge construction, and also the value system which you say that you have used in your book, right from Buddhism to this thing, feminist, this thing, starting with Foucault, and decentering the hegemony of the knowledge. I think that's very important. Now I would like to turn to Dr. Gita Balakrishnan, because she has been into the social work profession. She has also been both the education administrator, and her institution, College of Social Work, has a very strong component in community work, and some of the pioneering researches in our country are done by both research and action, and participatory action research has been done by College of Social Work. So I would like you to reflect on the book. Yeah. Please unmute. Please unmute, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vibhuti, and congratulations, Dr. Manisha and Kiran. And this book, you said that the lens that you have adopted for this particular book, and let me say hello to my fellow panelists also, Dr. Meenu and Dr. Sunayana and Dr. Arjun. Thank you. When I looked at the timing given to us, I was wondering my 7 minutes, and it's going to be really tough, but I'm going to just highlight a few things that I felt about and as I was reading the book. So the lens that you adopted definitely is very friendly and accepting and understanding. And I donned the lens of a social worker, a parent, a child, a grandparent, and a social work educator when I was reading the book. So it really changed. It was a 360-degree change when I kept reading, because the title is so striking, and several of we all, whenever we are looking at books in a bookstore, we skim through looking at the title, and not many books on parenting have I seen which is so striking. So it was really very striking. And it brought home several points, very important points to me. One of the things that I felt is the whole meaning of teaching children the importance of silence, the importance of serenity, and the importance of stillness. The whole book led me to feeling that children need to be taught all this. And when I'm from the College of Social Work, so we've been teaching subjects like early childhood development, work with individuals, work with groups, work with different communities, etc. And students have been working in several fieldwork organizations. So here we are dealing with Bal Mandals, we're dealing with youth groups, we're dealing with different groups, we're dealing with HIV positive, children who are positive. We're also working with evicted families, we're working with foster families, children awaiting adoption. So it's a whole range. And I think this book is going to be very useful for our own students. And Dr. Vibhuti is on our board of studies. We would definitely like to recommend this as one of the most essential books for social workers, because that will really, especially for the bachelor's degree, the BSW course, this will clinch a lot of things for them. So teaching children a lot, I was also thinking about children in institutions. When I say I'm looking at it through a lens of a social worker, I'm looking at children in institutions, children who don't have parents, but are looked after and cared for by house parents. So that entire, that entire domain is a very different domain, but all those parents also need this information. They can't be census information because they are dealing with several children. So that apart, because those children are struggling with, they're scarred children, they're struggling with emotions like jealousy, they're struggling with anger, they're struggling with hatred for each other. Sometimes they're so agog with anger with each other. There's so much of competition among them. And I remember a particular, I'm going to take a few seconds to remember a particular incident, I think way back in 92 or 93, when sex workers and all youngsters, they were all 13, 14, 15, 16, they're all rounded up by the then Municipal Commissioner, Dr. Khairnar, and they were brought to our institution where I was associated with. And the girls came in and they just broke everything. The sex workers, they were brought in trucks, in police vans, and they came and they just
And it was called, ironically, Operation Help.
Absolutely. And we were called, I'm associated with the organization, so it's called at 12 in the night, please come. The girls, 250 girls brought in, and they just broke each and everything in that institute. In the institution. So there is, so we are also dealing with different types of children, because children, these are, we are all, I think we are all, we've been lucky to have families who gave wings to our thoughts and to our children who have, have been able to think of on their own. So these children definitely need to develop, all the children, we definitely need to develop a mind of their own. One of the things that you stressed very beautifully is on the use of language. And I think that not all of us have the capacity to explain things in the manner that would, that would send the correct message. And I look at it as something very important to be aware as parents, and whoever taking care of children, wherever we are caring for children, the importance of using language for them. And many of us probably do not even realize how much we can scar children when we use wrong language, or not wrong language, but not the correct language. And there was this girl who wanted to become a doctor, and she told her teacher, I want to become a doctor. And the teacher said, nothing doing, you can never become a doctor. So, but the girl did, because she carried that weight of rejection in her, and so teachers make so much of a difference. But she did her PhD, and she's a good friend of mine. She did her PhD and she went back to her teacher, who was very old, to tell her that, ma'am, I finished my PhD and I'm a doctor now. But the teacher said, did I say that to you? So, it was, she really didn't come out of it because she wanted to get vindicated, but I suppose she was just not able to do that. So there are so many, and teachers definitely matter. And one of the things as social workers, we've been into so many disasters. Disaster intervention has been the forte of our college, especially, and several other social work colleges. And we have intervened in nearly 14 to 15 national disasters till now. So in our homes as social workers, reaching out, working during cyclones, during earthquakes, these have become family routines. Nobody questions us. We go off, neither the elders, forget about the children, even the elders, the in-laws, they never question us, because there's no, okay, if there's something on the TV, this one will go off for some work. So I think that has got some of the other gets communicated to the children also, the house, who realize that, no, we have something to do. There are some TV messages on tsunami coming on and on and on, and the children say, Ma, aren't you going? So I think this is what we are talking about when, when you sensitizing the children in very various ways. We don't have to tell them anything, but they are able to pick up that, these are calls for us. And you've written very beautifully about the importance of understanding privilege and tolerance. And and your entire part of, understanding conversations, this struck a parallel for me as a social worker. Because as a social worker, you've listed three things. One is the language of care, tone of comfort, and the use of sensitive content, and which signals a deep empathy for the experiences and realities of others. And this is what we are also doing in our social work training. And I would really definitely like to stress on, listening as something very important, how important it is to listen to whoever it is. And one of the things, striking a dialogue and listening to each and every child in an institution is so important, because that's the parenting there that it's being done by the house parents and people who are taking care of the children. So I'm going back to my social work domain, because it's so important for us, and especially the children who are really battered, they're scarred, they don't have anything to look forward to. And here, it's very difficult to teach them so many things. So these are very important for us, whether it's listening, whether it's acceptance, there's a non-judgmental attitude we always speak about. And yours is, I think it's one of, the other thing you spoke about very strongly is accessibility. So for all children, you need not be children with disability, but all children, access to so many things is not there. It's not there at all for them. Another thing is about children getting rejected. So many children are rejected, in so many ways, and they face rejection. Sometimes you may feel that these rejections they're so silly. For example, a girl came and told me that one of her students, she said, "Ma'am, I can't come for the camp." Why? She says, "Ma'am, I snore. So the others don't accept me." So there's rejections that we can't even think of, but they're creating havoc in the student. Another student came and she said that my father is, of course, he was an alcoholic, but she went and she stabbed her father in the knee once because she was so angry. Her mother was getting battered. So then again, she felt that, the entire family was rejecting her because of this action of hers. There's so many things, so many nuances to the type of rejection that, children face. So when we are looking at parenting also, I think we important to understand so many aspects of children. And I think one of the, yours is a very engaging book that I've read recently. And as I began, I thought it was just experiences, but then it cut seamlessly to theoretical information, camouflaged in real life experiences. You didn't really put it as theory, but it was there. It was there. And again, your entire explanation of sensitizing youngsters about different religions, this brought back again a very important memory for us. As a college, we were involved in the after the Bombay riots and 92, 93. And the slum communities where we had been working for so many years, where the Muslims and the Hindus lived together in total friendship and happiness, suddenly overnight they were not even looking at each other, and we were then made, we had to go and work with them. It became so difficult. It was so difficult, and you saw the impact on the children. It was devastating how the children were affected after the Bombay riots. So it was not only the Bombay riots, and it went on, of course. And so this also brought back a very good memory for me. And another thing is your listing of excellent books and films which drove home several good messages, and the exercises that you have done. Definitely, it's not a book on parenting, but it covers, it's not a book as such, a textbook on parenting, but it covers all points related to parenting. You've even looked at bulimia and anorexia and all. But when I'm looking at my children in the institutions, I'm not really looking at bulimia or anorexia. I'm looking at pain, and I'm looking at loss for them. I'm looking at rejection for them. I'm looking at anger for them. And I'm looking at, this young boy who lost both, coming to COVID, this young boy who lost both his children, both his parents in this COVID pandemic. and is an adopted child, and suddenly said that, I'm already a rejected once, and I'm again rejected, because and I don't, it is a double rejection for me. So there's so many children who go through a lot of pain. And so coming to of course, we are not, I would like to say that your styles of writing, I could decipher two styles of writing, but they merged well into each other. It really merged well, and that was something very good. So I really would like to talk about, just stress once in the last few seconds, the importance of building relationships with children and having a comfortable personal space with them, especially in institutions, in our communities, in our schools, in wherever we are working, the importance. And a lot of time we tell the child or the student that if you have some anchor in the school or the college where you can go to and you can talk to, need not be your class teacher, need not be your faculty advisor, but children need some anchor. And similarly, because they may not have that particular relationship with their parents, they may need this anchor. And also in terms of, connecting through dialogue to our students, to all, to the children. For me, those things are a big takeaways from your book, and I really enjoyed. And of course, there will be discussions on policy and all, but I am looking at the book as something that I can take. There are small things that can be done. For example, there's a very short film called Are Baba. And that in Are Baba, the child gets her periods for the first time, a girl child, and she doesn't have a mother. And the father, how does the father relate to her? How he acts. He suddenly realizes that the child has started menstruating. And this film is taken by the director of the film to several villages, and they explain this, they show the film and they explain this film to the school children there. So, the importance of having a relationship also with the father, where you can even divulge such information. Also in terms of the space and the security that you all were speaking about, how you can create those safe spaces for children to even, confide in their parents. And so thank you so much. I know, but I can go on about the book. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Geeta Balkrishnan, for such a beautiful explanation and connecting with the book with your experiences of being in a social work field, both in terms of a researcher and as a teacher, and also as a decision maker. Now I turn to Dr. Meenu Anand. You have worked with the community organizations, NGOs, and also now you are in Delhi School of Social Work. And recently your book on gender and mental health has also come out. So as a psychological dimension also you have dealt with. So what is your, can you share your response to the book?
Thank you so much, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
A very good evening to everybody. I thank the organizers and Professor Patel for giving me this opportunity to speak about this wonderful book, Raising a Humanist, Conscious Parenting in an Increasingly Fragmented World, by Professor Pathak and Ms. Kiran Bhatia. I will be speaking from an academic perspective as a feminist and also as a mother. To start with, I want to say that we are all living in a VUCA world. It's volatile because there are unstable challenges. It's uncertain because there are no known outcomes. It's very challenging because there are many interconnections. There is a lot of ambiguity because there is no clarity. This book comes in the VUCA world when the entire world is indeed experiencing the pandemic, and therefore becomes even more meaningful and significant. There are many, many good things about this book, and I will be focusing, however, only on 4 key takeaways, which I really found to be most fascinating. The first key point about the book for me, that it evoked a lot of empathic coherence. From the very first chapter, it evoked a relatability an understandable empathy, and a sense of oneness with the reader. When we read the book as a scholar or as an educator or as a parent, and most of us, are indeed composite wholes of all these three different roles and many more roles in our life. And there is something in this book that resonates with everybody. The book beautifully presents the concept of echo chambers and describes it as a safety net and as safe harbors that we all have. Through day-to-day anecdotes, multiple quizzes for reality testing, self-reflection exercises, the book really presents through overt as well as covert ways how we tend to compartmentalize our children into binaries of rights and wrong, do's and don'ts. It also translates very beautifully how the big three, as rightly called by the authors, the family, the school, and the media, are crucial agents that shape the impressionable minds of young children right from the time when they are born. The book evoked a lot of empathy, and we can all find a bit of ourselves through its thought-provoking examples and expansive illustrations. The second key point that I wish to highlight about the book is inclusivity. The book is holistic and all-inclusive across varied social aspects of a person's life. We're all aware and we have read extremely popular books on gender and others that highlight the role of caste or religion in the process of grooming children and imparting the shoulds and the should nots. The USP of the book is that it unveils and highlights not one, but four aspects of an individual's identity. A, it covers gender, and within that, it discusses the contestations across the transgender, agender, and also the queer. It even discusses the old practice of breast tax that used to take place in Travancore, and also covers gay marriages as well as gender-based discrimination that are rampant across our patriarchal world. B, it covers the most contentious issue, that is caste, which is often obliqued and evaded. C, it covers religion in a very, very sensitive manner and how it is imparted through description from mythological tales. It also covers the very contemporary issue of love jihad in the context of a Hindu girl marrying a Muslim boy and not vice versa. The book covers class-based issues as well, that is differences created across the rich and the poor, haves and the have-nots, and also has quiz on checking our privileges. Therefore, the second key point, according to me, is inclusivity. That spread across the four significant domains covering gender, caste, class, as well as religion in the context of socialization. The third point that I wish to make about this wonderful book is that this book involves a feeling of challenging oneself. I quote from the book where the authors have quoted Peter Drucker, who said, "The greatest danger in the times of turbulence is not the turbulence, but it is to act with yesterday's logic." The world is moving faster and faster than ever before, and COVID-19 pandemic is one of the examples of an eventuality that can happen where no one was actually expecting it. As an engrossed and a very engaged reader, I found the book not only to be thought-provoking, but also challenging the reader to re-examine oneself, reflect, unlearn, and also be open to relearning. For example, the book not only makes us understand the contemporary obsession with fairness and body imaging in the context of the photoshopped tech world, but it also encourages and challenges the reader to try a hand at learning newer devices, befriending technology in an ever-changing technological landscape. It challenges the reader to move from local to global, building global civic communities in whatever sector or stream that we might be working in, and therefore challenging thereby our age-old styles of being comfortable in our own safety cocoons. The fourth and the final takeaway from this wonderful book is that it is practice-oriented. As a social work professional, I strongly believe in the praxis between the theoretical framework that we deliberate upon in the classroom and in the field. This book lists doable, actionable, workable strategies for parents, for families, for educators and communities in a very, very comprehensive manner. From an individualistic perspective, it talks of strategies that move from micro to meso and to macro levels. It teaches tolerance, for example, through the acronym IDEA. It gives 4 steps to push oneself out of our echo chambers and initiating difficult conversations in a very, very sensitive manner with children. It gives us list of age group wise books for children and adults to watch, meaningful poems, movies to watch, and even TED Talks for further reflection and enhancement of ideas. It gives actionable and practical ideas to reinvent parenting. It not only gives actionable strategies for parents and families, but also for communities to find tactful ways and debunking stereotypes and practicing care and tolerance. Most importantly, it gives practical tips to practice self-love and body positivity, which I think is one of the most crucial things in the world today, where there is so much of self-doubt in an um, increasing world full of anxiety and stress. It also has 1-minute well-being exercises for everybody. So to summarize my 4 key points, the book evokes empathy, it is inclusive, it challenges the reader, and it is also practice oriented. And dear friends and panelists and authors, I also want to share that after reading this book, I actually sat down with my son, who is a young adult, and we together created many new acronyms for the word MICA with respect to how the parent-child relationship should be in the contemporary world. So he said that we should stand for vision, vivaciousness, vigor in the parent-child relationship. U should stand for understanding. C should stand for communication, clarity, compassion, care, and A stands, according to him, for agility, particularly emotional agility, amorous, and affection. So, Dr. Pathak, Dr. Bhatia, I have loved and enjoyed reading your wonderful book. I would like to applaud you both for giving fresh ideas on nurturing children who can be happy, innovative beings and enjoy a multicultural, rich society. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you very much, Dr. Minu Anand, for a very lucid and crisp, at the same time very erudite presentation, and making a convincing case in favor of the message of this book, and also your exercise with your son, the acronym. I think that is very, very mind-blowing. Now it's a turn of Dr. Sunayana Kadle. She, as an educationist, how would she respond to this book, and what are the important takeaways of this book, and how do you see its importance in the 21st century knowledge economy?
Sunayana ma'am, please unmute. Yeah. Ma'am, you have to unmute. Yeah.
I think my co-panelists have spoken a lot on this book. I share the same feelings. Good evening, one and all. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of Gender Impact Studies Center at IMPRI for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this panel discussion, along with all eminent speakers, panelists, and the chairpersons. It's really an honor for me. Actually, I've prepared this for this discussion. I read the book thrice as I was just talking with you. You know, this book is really an eye-opener. When I read the book, I started thinking about whatever is written in the book about the case studies, the anecdotes, the small things, some sentences which were given for reflection. And really, it is a very impactful book. I would really like to congratulate the authors, Dr. Manisha Pathak-Shelat and Kiran Vinod Bhatia, for writing this book, which is really the need of the hour. The title is also so catchy. The book Raising a Humanist, which is really required and in these times, and conscious parenting in an increasing fragmented world is indeed very well written. So the book stresses on the need for parents to reflect on their own methods of nurturing children. I think every parent should read this and reflect, are we doing the same? How are we nurturing the children? This book, it is about how parents play a role in building a bridge between the child and the outside world. Because it's really totally, the parents are accountable for this and communicating expectations while socializing the children. And whatever biased attitudes which are there of the parents, they are internalized by the children in the house. So how should this parents behave? Or how should, consciously or unconsciously, there are a lot of mistakes made by parents when they are nurturing the children. So this is really, I started reflecting why people behave like that, why our society is like this, why there is no change. So this book has made me reflect. I liked one chapter, it was on tolerance, philosophy. It first spoke about tolerance. We say tolerate other religions and other things. But, in this chapter, the authors have spoken about the word tolerance in a negative manner. That they have talked about when we say I'm tolerating someone. So actually the person who is tolerating is on the upper hand. So it talks about that, and they said we should use the word acceptance and coexistence, which I liked it very much. And many of the thoughts of Gandhiji, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, they have been quoted and written so well and in a very convincing manner. Further, the book talks about, as my co-panelists have spoken about, stereotyping and the biased ways how the parents, they raise their children. So, and a lot of challenging questions and examples which actually make us reflect. And I think when we read a book, and that book which makes us reflect on these things, it's a really very good book which everyone needs to read. Last in the book, it talks about reinventing parenting. And really it talks about unlearning and relearning so that we nurture our children in a much better manner, so that they they raise a humanist, and we are not only raising very selfish kind of children. So this was all about the book. I think we have spoken the contents, and these were my whatever I liked in the book. Then my reflections, I would say that in this 21st century, we see that there are so many changes going on in the world. There's technological explosion, knowledge explosion. We are talking about artificial intelligence. We are developing 21st century skills in the children. But yet, and this has been happening through so many decades. But still, why there is no change, especially in India, related to, still the caste system is there, class, gender biases, religious conflicts. So while reading this book, I felt why this is happening and still prevailing in the society, because when we say that every generation is learning, like what I have now, what is my education level? My parents were little lesser than what I studied. Their parents, that is my grandparents, they were less. They had not studied as much as my parents studied. Or we try to give our children again the best as parents. So we want to do let them, we see that they do well in life. So with education, is there only literacy? With education, these means what we are saying, this fragmentation in the society, it should change, but still it remains then and there. So that made me think, why? Yes, we are getting educated, but these things are still remaining there. So I think because, these things are being carried on, like what the parents did, what the grandparents did, the people, again, the parents, they also follow the same. So actually this book, when every parent reads, it will give a thought, to read how we need to think. And this is because every parent is taking part in the rat race. We only want our children, to be successful human beings, a good pay package, good education. We are not looking into developing them as human beings. So, and we are making them very empathetic, reflective children, okay, in the society, sensitive to the problems. Many a times I have seen when we go around, when you are traveling by train, and when we see children around. So I have seen parents telling their children, see, if you don't study, you will be like this, you will be begging when you go in the train, you'll have to do this, so you better study. So what are we telling? Are we thinking and explaining them that why? See, because we are having certain privileges that child is not having, but in a negative manner, you better study, otherwise you'll have to beg or you'll have to be a rag picker. So we are not sensitive to this, and we need to discuss with all these issues with our children in a very nice manner. I feel that teachers, parents, we need to rethink while nurturing our children. Now, I'm in a teacher education college. The approach to teacher education should be different. What it should not be just portion completion. We need to look into the EQ aspect also of our teachers, of our children. And even we have this courses where we are teaching teachers. They should not only teach children or parenting or nurturing the children to learn concepts. More the focus is on how they are going to learn math, how they are going to learn science, how are they going to learn certain concepts, how are they going to develop some certain skills like drawings and craft. Instead, we need to discuss when there are certain things. And I think school is a social hub where we have people from different caste, religion, communities, classes. I think the teachers there, they have a very big role to play. They can discuss, we can celebrate festivals, we can have webinars, called parents also, and let parents be participants in this particular education, what is being given to children, so that they also realize, they also think, how they need to bring about their children. In our teacher training course, we teach a very nice theory by Yuri Bronfenbrenner, talks about the ecological system and how it impacts the child in every way. The microsystem, mesosystem, the chronosystem, all these systems which are there, they affect the child. There are 5 systems. And the first system is a microsystem, which is the parents and schools, the interaction between the parents and the schools, how they affect the child. So I think very nicely it is given in this book about this concern, about nurturing and how we need to rethink and we need to really incorporate uh, all these discussions related to whatever the evils we say or conflicts which are there in this society. So we can have seminars, workshops, we can invite the parents, involve parents also in the programs which we can do. So it will really focus on a good education and developing really very good human beings. So parental involvement, I feel in a nutshell, we can share ideas on the platform, certain webinars, certain participation, where we can really raise children together. Why I'm saying teachers and parents? Because now in this situation, we are talking about nurturing and parents nurturing their children at home. But now there's so much change in the society. We see that uh, the families are, nuclear families are there. Both the parents are working. More time and discussions, they can happen in schools because the children are in the school with the teachers for a longer duration. So all these things, something happens in the newspapers, the teacher, she can take out some time and discuss that issue, whether it was right, wrong, some anything related to caste or some whatever problems would have been taken. Ma'am has talked very nicely about the disaster management. Yes, involve children in community work, your sensitization and other things. So a lot can be done, by the school teachers, as we call them second parents, but I think now they have become first parents. Lot can be done through school programs and we can nurture, which is being done. But I think it has to be done in a more, strong manner. And I feel that really this book can make an impact in the society. It can guide for current and future parenting styles, where we consciously incorporate universal values of equality, justice, freedom, democracy, coexistence, love, and compassion. As parents and teachers, we need not just incorporate these values, but also have a healthy discussion, as I had told, on it. How can our children manifest these values in their daily life? How can we make love and compassion and coexistence real and working? We cannot afford to just discuss and debate, but theorize and start to implement these. Something more I felt that, when I was thinking, also these values which are there, they need to become a basis for our marital relationships. See, we look for, even when people come together in marriage, they look for financial stability, social compatibility, etc. But there is no political compatibility is not looked. How does my partner look at poverty, poor people? Is my partner able to speak truth to power? Is my partner able to accept the above mentioned values as core values? I think this point also can be included, because if both the parents, they are on the same page, if they are able to think on the same lines, their belief systems are same, I think nurturing good humanist, good children, raising children in the proper manner, I think, that's my thought, will be really beneficial. There is too much greed, misery, inhumanness across, and we need to heal within. This book is taking the reader in that direction. I recommend this book to everyone, and each one of us as teachers, parents, as members of the society should read it. I would like to end by saying the only religion of mankind is hope. Hope means we need to take proper decisions and work towards it through collab action. That is, we need to collaborate and take action as teachers, parents, as members of the society to fulfill the dreams of a humanist society. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Dr. Sunayana Kadle. Obviously, you are going to write a very exhaustive review article for Question Education, which is our journal, in-house journal. But I think the idea that your intervention gave is that we need a new Saptapadi. I think based on the ethos of this book and the values that they have given, I think when people get, instead of conventional Saptapadi where woman has a subordinate role and she has to see her pati as a Parmeshwar, I think we need to have a new Saptapadi, and I think many activists have even experimented it, that we will respect the environment, there will be mutual respect, we will raise our child to become a humanist and this thing. So I think that kind of work also can happen, and I think so many new ideas have emerged because of the presentation of both Kiran and Manisha, and also the response of Dr. Geeta and Sunayana and also Minu. So I think now the floor is open for discussion. There is only one question, that how can we change the attitude of society towards women? And I think all five of you, I would like that last round of 2 minutes, you all can speak on how, because that seems to be the major concern, because I saw both the chat backs and Q&A. I think second question has come. Now let us see. How does a parent deal with young youth or adolescent child who is reluctant or even doesn't listen to the parents, to what parents have to say, and very difficult for parents of youth to make them humane, more difficult in pandemic times? Can the authors highlight? So I think these 3 questions, like your team, you decide who would take what. About the gender issue, who would like to respond? How can we change our attitude towards women?
I think I will take that up, because I will draw on my personal experiences. I think the first thing to acknowledge is that all of us, to a large extent, have been raised and socialized in a patriarchal society. So hard as we try, we are still fighting the patriarchal tendencies that are deeply embedded in our psyche, in our actions, the way we talk, the way we behave and engage with others. And this is based on my personal experiences. But I think a good strategy is to continue having conversations which would challenge our own biases and the biases of other people, the patriarchal prejudices to a large extent. I would really want to bring in a conversation I've always had with my father. My father now identifies himself as a faltering feminist. So when we were growing up, I also come from a society and a family which was initially very traditional to a large extent. And it was very common for my parents to say, you shouldn't go out late at night, it's not safe for girls. You should stay in, you should come back home early. And right now, I mean, when I was young, I was very rebellious about it. And I was like, they don't understand, they're putting restrictions unnecessarily. But now I realize that though these are patriarchal tendencies to say that women should stay home instead of making public spaces more safe, it also somehow reflects that common people, normal people, do not really have much scope when it comes to making macro changes. So they can't really, my parents can't go out and make public places safe. So if we really want to change the position of women in our society, it has to be a twofold approach. We have to change things in our own homes. We have to have these difficult conversations with our parents. We have to challenge them to think in different ways. And we have to bring about some policy changes in which we are questioning these age-old traditions or laws which are embedded in age-old ideas of keeping women indoors or keeping them safe, or attaching the idea of honor as something that requires safety and security without looking at how women need to be allowed to be who they are while allowing for an environment that enables them rather than restricts them. So I think the first step would be having those difficult conversations with your own family members, but also acknowledging that they have their own limitations. They have been raised in a different generation, a different society. So make sure you're having those conversations. And as parents, we have mentioned in this book, we can learn a lot from children because they're learning from other people. They are the next generation. So they can also help us unlearn our own prejudices and biases. So if it is a two-way sort of a conversation where you're continuing to have these difficult conversations with older generation while simultaneously learning from the next generation, that's like the sweet spot to be in. It won't happen overnight, but every step counts. So changes at the micro and the macro level would contribute to a holistic change, which is more comprehensive and enduring in nature.
Vibhuti, you muted.
How does a parent deal with a young adult who is not even ready to listen to her? So
Okay,
what kind of ice-breaking exercise, Dr. Manisha, you would suggest? Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that. I think I would first of all say that, this is where the problem starts, because we think that we speak and they listen. They should listen. I think we should listen to them more. That's the, I think, very first important thing. So democratization in the family itself. So even when we make rules, we can co-construct the rules, then children don't feel that the rules have been imposed on. So I think not us saying they listening, but more again, conversations, dialogue, learning a lot from our children because they are exposed to many more newer ideas. I think very briefly, I would say that we can begin there.
Yeah, okay. So now it's your turn, panelist. As a reviewer, what would be your final statement? Dr. Gita Balakrishnan?
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate that I enjoyed the book. I think what I want you, it's a small request, if you can translate the book into regional languages, it would be, the outreach would be much more, because those reading English are much fewer. And if it's translated, especially for our community work, we want, and into simple bits, and, just some exercises, some little bits of information to be given, that would really help. Secondly, I did feel that, this question about humaneness, the humaneness comes from demonstration by us. And just a small, like Kiran was saying, I also come from a family which was in that semi-patriarchal type. But I think the best thing that I learned was when I was a very young child, my father's Muslim friend came to live with us. And, it was, and I realized that, it's quite normal in the house if he's staying with us, and that's when I started understanding that there is nothing like a Hindu or a Muslim. We're all one, So I think demonstration by parents helps the best. When they demonstrate things to us, we learn that this is part of life. There is no difference. They didn't have to tell me anything, but we understood. So that is the second thing. The third thing I wanted to say is this book needs to be utilized by teacher training institutions, by social workers, by schools and colleges in, as a foundation course, if this can be introduced as a foundation course. Also, some ways of taking this information to rural communities and urban communities, because there the situation is quite different, for underprivileged families, for people in the slums. What is more important for them is tomorrow's food and the shelter that they have, because they're getting evicted on a daily basis sometimes. So maybe fine-tuning this information to reach maximum people, that for me, that would be really very good. And
yeah, and I see also the possibility of pictorial, the same message through pictorial publication. That is all. And SAGE has a massive program of translation, so I think that can be negotiated, because it will then become a textbook, because as it is in regional language, we hardly have anything on early childhood education. And National Education Policy 2020 has also strongly recommended from the age 3 you have to start the value education. It's excellent suggestion and very doable, practical. Now, Dr. Meenu Anand, what would you like to say?
Thank you, ma'am. In addition to, I think Geeta ma'am has so beautifully and aptly raised such wonderful suggestions. I just wish to say that in all probability, we at Delhi School of Social Work will be revising our MA syllabus because of the new NEP. As soon as it is going to be implemented, we will be told to revise. And I definitely intend to put this in our syllabus as a compulsory reading. We have many papers where this book can really beautifully fit in. And I definitely, of course, at my personal level, immediately going to share about it with my research scholars and my MA students and MPhil students. And thank you so much. Congratulations once again.
Yeah. A very important question asked by Ms. Satjot Kaur Duggal. How would you like to reach out to the parents who can't read and afford to buy the book? Dr. Sunayana Kadle, you have worked with the most marginalized and poorest of the poor children in your educational institution, Indian Council of Basic Education. How would you take this message to them who have not been reached so far?
I feel we can have, when there are PTA meetings happening in the schools and colleges. So, what happens is parents wait for their turn, discuss with the teacher and go away. But when they are coming for these programs, we can have some kind of webinars or a seminar and speak to such parents, try to explain to them in their language. We can have a dialogue, so that it's actually a pooled effort of the teachers, the education institutes can do this. And as far as being a teacher educator, we have these paper reading sessions in the morning every day. So I would review this book, try to, all this, and I would like to recommend all my teachers, student teachers, to read the book, go through it, and also they themselves, it's like a chain. It's not you have to keep it to yourself, and encourage them to talk about this very openly, discuss. We are going from schools to schools, for our practice teaching lessons. So we have these students about the beliefs, about the conflicts, religious conflicts, caste system. We do talk, but we can have activities which are mentioned in the books, make them reflect. And then, we are having suppose 100 students per year who are going to be teachers in our college. So these 100 will influence so many. And I think we can really make a beautiful world when people realize what is there in this.
I think taking the message of the students to the national NSS students, because they get rural posting, tribal posting, they have to do 100 hours of work. I think through that also, I think we can reach out to those who can't read and who can't buy. It's not very, for teachers, it's okay. But otherwise it can be, price can be prohibitive. But SAGE, regional language publications, and this one, so many things are in public domain. So eventually I think it will come. We have been downloading several books, which has now SAGE has deprivatized. So I think we can lobby for it, that it is for a social good. Maximum number of people should get a maximum advantage, so that in course of time can be done. But the regional publications, publications in regional languages are affordable. So with this, we come to an end, and I would like to sum up by saying that it was a really extremely stimulating and inspiring experience. because it's a time to act at the policy level, community level, institution, and family levels. I think as all 5 of you have reiterated again and again in different ways. Lessons in core values of humanism go a long way in bringing social transformation in favor of responsive behavior and also the mindset that is socially conscious and caring. Last 200 years of history of social movements have also shown that only through proactive efforts we can create sensitivity towards women and men, animals, plant world, and also Mother Earth, because all of us have had our baggage, and to shed those baggage, we will have to unlearn sexism, unlearn casteism, unlearn communalism. In South Africa, they used to have unlearn apartheid values or unlearn racism. So those kind of exercises can also be evolved by us. All of us have a lot of creativity in our in our project work and our essay competition, poster competition, co-curricular and extracurricular activities that we organize in educational institutions, in NGOs, and in the community organization. So all state groups in the field of early child care and also education, they have major moral and ethical responsibility to groom today's children and future citizens who will always practice what the Constitution of India guarantees: equality, freedom, gender justice, social justice, distributive justice, environmental justice. And in the end, I would like to remind you of a famous quote by Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, and I quote, "Constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment. It has to be cultivated. We must realize our people have yet to learn it. And our people include men and women, girls and boys, leaders and citizens, litigants, lawyers, judges alike. The same applies to teachers, textbook writers, educationers, child counselors, and parents." And this book, Raising a Humanist, Conscious Parenting in Increasingly Fragmented World by Dr. Manisha Pathak-Shelat and Dr. Kiran Vinod Bhatia, it makes a convincing case in this direction. And I once again congratulate both the authors. Thank you very much. Over to Dr. Arjun Kumar.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. And it was such an enriching discussion, very lively, I must say. And Vibhuti ma'am chairs session so well, very prepared, makes things very convenient for us also to organize. So I would echo Professor Patel's word that we have to take things very seriously, as also Dr. Ambedkar has raised. And on behalf of all of us, those who are joining here and will be watching later, we all congratulate both of our authors for this very important book, Dr. Manisha ma'am and Kiran ma'am, for this book, which has come out from the Sage Publishers, Raising a Humanist, Conscious Parenting in an Increasingly Fragmented World. So on behalf of Gender Impact Studies Center at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, we all thank you for joining for this book discussion under our series Gender Gaps. And we once again thanks both of our speakers and authors of the book. And I would also like to extend our thanks to our discussants, Dr. Geeta ma'am, Dr. Sunayana ma'am, and also Dr. Meenu ma'am, and lastly, and more importantly, our chair for the session, Professor Vibhuti ma'am, for chairing this very important discussion. And I must say this was a very excellent discussion this evening. Thank you, all of you, and I congratulate you for your very important work. Thank you. Have a nice evening.